The distress beacon had been calling for 3 days when the wayward Mercy finally found the ship. Stood at the bridge window and watched the wreck grow larger. The warship was dead in space. No lights, no engine glow, just a metal coffin spinning slowly in the darkness between stars. "Life signs?" she asked. Her pilot, a tired man named Demos, checked his screens. "Nothing human, but there is something. Biocontainment bay on deck 7. Whatever is in there, it is still alive." Did not like nobody did. They were a military empire that believed in only one thing, power. They made weapons out of everything, chemicals, machines, living things. If it could kill, they wanted to own it. "We go in," she said, careful and quiet. The boarding was easy. The ship had been attacked by pirates weeks ago. The crew was dead. The pirates had taken everything valuable and left, but they had not found Deck 7. And her team moved through dark hallways. Their flashlights cut through the shadows. The air was cold and smelled like old metal and something else, something alive. The biocontainment bay was behind a thick door, used her tools to cut through the lock. The door opened with a hiss of escaping air. Inside, she found them. 6 pods stood in a row. They were made of glass and metal filled with blue liquid. Inside each pod was a creature. They were small. They had fur and claws and faces that looked almost like big cats from Earth, but their eyes were different, too smart, too aware. Cubs, they were just cubs. Demos came up behind her and stopped. He whispered. His voice was afraid. Had heard stories about everyone had. They were the greatest weapons, predators from a death world, modified and trained to kill without mercy. Full-grown had ended entire wars. They were monsters. But these were not monsters. These were Bobbies. "They have neural implants," said her engineer, Myra. She was looking at a screen on the wall. "They put machines in their brains. They control them with pain signals. These cubs were being taken to a training facility." Walked closer to the pods. The smallest cub was awake. Its silver fur was thin and patchy. It was clearly the weakest of the group, a runt. It pressed one small paw against the glass and watched her with golden eyes. "How old are they?" asked. "The files say the oldest is 4 cycles, maybe equal to a human child of 4 years. Myra paused. "We need to leave. They will come looking for this cargo. If they find us with these cubs, they will kill us." "We take them," said. Demos grabbed her arm. "Are you crazy? These things will grow up to be killers. They are designed for it. We cannot save them." Looked at the small silver cub. It was still watching her. It was afraid. She could see the fear in its eyes, but there was something else too, hope. A tiny spark of hope that someone might help. She knew that look. She had worn it herself as a child. Had grown up in the foster systems of New. She had been passed from home to home, treated as a problem to be managed. Nobody had wanted her. Nobody had seen her as a person worth loving. She had been alone for most of her childhood. She was not going to let these cubs feel that way. "We take them," she said again. "That is final." Myra and Demos looked at each other. They had worked with for years. They knew that voice. When she made a decision like this, nothing could change her mind. The next few hours were hard work. They had to carefully remove the cubs from the pods. The blue liquid drained away and the glass opened. One by one, the cubs woke up. They were confused and scared. They made small sounds that were not quite growls and not quite cries. Their claws were already sharp enough to cut through fabric. The largest cub scratched Demos on the arm before they could calm it down. But they did calm down, spoke to them in a soft voice. She moved slowly. She did not shout or grab or threaten. She just waited and let them come to her when they were ready. The silver runt was the first to approach. It sniffed her hand and then pressed its head against her palm. Its fur was soft and warm. "Hello, little one," said. "You are safe now, I promise." They carried the cubs back to the wayward Mercy, made a space for them in the cargo bay. She put down blankets and found some protein paste that she hoped they could eat. As the ship flew away from the dead warship, sat with the cubs. They huddled together in a pile of fur and limbs. The silver runt stayed close to her, its small body pressed against her leg. Myra came down to check on them. "They will track us," she said. "They will want their weapons back." "They are not weapons," said. "They are children." The galaxy will not see it that way. Looked at the sleeping cubs. They breathed softly. Their paws twitched as they dreamed. She wondered what nightmares lived inside their small heads, what pain had already been written into their young lives. Then we will show the galaxy something different, she said. We will show them what these children can become when someone gives them a chance. Myra shook her head but said nothing more. She had known long enough to understand that arguing was pointless. The wayward Mercy flew into the dark space between systems. Behind them, the dead ship grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared. Ahead of them was an uncertain future. Did not know how to raise alien predator cubs. She did not know how to keep them safe from an empire that wanted them back. She did not know if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. But she knew one thing for certain. These cubs deserved a chance to become something other than weapons, and she was going to give it to them, no matter what it cost. The silver runt made a small sound in its sleep, rested her hand on its warm head. "I have got you," she whispered. "I have got all of you." The first week was a disaster. The cubs did not understand kindness. They had been raised in pods and fed through tubes. The only touch they knew was cold metal and the sharp pain of neural commands. When tried to pet them, they flinched. When she offered food, they waited for the punishment that always came with eating too slowly. They also destroyed nearly everything they touched. Claws could cut through ship metal. The cubs did not know how to control their strength yet. They tore through blankets. They scratched walls. They ripped open food containers and scattered protein paste across the floor. The largest cub, a dark-furred male with scars on his face, broke a door off its frame when he got startled. Demos wanted to lock them in the cargo bay. "They are going to tear the ship apart," he said, "and then they will tear us apart." Myra had a different suggestion. "The neural implants still work. I can send commands through them, just enough to keep them calm and controlled." Looked at the control device in Myra's hand. It was a simple thing, a few buttons, a small screen. With it, she could send pain signals directly into the cubs' brains. She could make them obey every command. She could make them afraid. "How does it work?" she asked. Myra showed her. "This button sends a mild shock. This one is stronger. If they disobey, you press it and they learn to do what you say." Took the device. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she dropped it on the floor and crushed it under her boot. "We are not doing that," she said. "They will kill us," Demos said. "They will not. They are scared. They are bobbies. They have never known anything except pain and control." Looked at her crew. "We are going to teach them something different." The next few weeks were hard, barely slept. She spent every moment with the cubs. She learned their personalities. The dark-furred male was aggressive because he was scared. She started calling him, which meant shadow in an old Earth language. The silver runt was curious and gentle. She named him Trace because he followed her everywhere like a little tracker. The other 4 cubs found their names too. Soot, Copper, Fang, each one was different. Each one had their own fears and their own ways of showing them. Did not punish them when they made mistakes. When Trace tore open a supply crate, she did not yell. She sighed, cleaned up the mess, and showed him how to open containers properly. When growled at Demos, she stepped between them and spoke softly until the big cub calmed down. At first, the cubs did not understand. They kept waiting for pain that never came. They watched with confused eyes. Why was she not hurting them? Why was she not forcing them to obey? Slowly, very slowly, they began to change. Trace was the first to trust her completely. One night, woke up to find him sleeping outside her cabin door. He had left the warm pile of his siblings to be close to her. When she opened the door, he looked up at her with those golden eyes and made a soft sound. Not a growl, something closer to a purr. "Good boy," she whispered. She sat down next to him and scratched behind his ears. His whole body relaxed. After that, Trace became her shadow. He followed her everywhere on the ship. He watched everything she did. And when anyone raised their voice near her, even in a friendly way, he growled until they stopped. The other cubs took longer, was the hardest. He had been hurt the most by the scars on his face came from punishment beatings. He did not trust anyone, but was patient. Every day she sat near him. She did not try to touch him, she just talked. She told him stories about Earth, about forests and mountains and oceans, about animals that were not weapons, about a world where creatures lived free. Listened, he pretended not to, but she saw his ears turn toward her voice. One day, 3 months after they had rescued the cubs, walked up to while she was eating dinner. He sat down next to her. He did not say anything. He just sat there, close enough to touch. Understood, she did not reach for him. She just kept eating. She let him set the pace. After a few minutes, lowered his big head and rested it on her knee. That was when started to cry. Myra found her like that, sitting in the mess hall, tears running down her face with a massive predator cub sleeping in her lap. "I thought you said they would not kill us," Myra said. Laughed through her tears. "They will not, they are learning." "Learning what?" Stroked head. "That they do not have to be what the made them, that strength can be used to protect instead of destroy, that they are worth loving." Myra sat down across from her. "You know they are still looking for them. We cannot run forever." "I know. What are we going to do?" Looked at, then at Trace, who was sleeping in the corner, at the other cubs curled up together near the heating vent. "We are going to raise them," she said. "We are going to give them a home, and when they come, they will see that these children are not weapons anymore." "What are they then?" Smiled. "They are my family." Over the next few months, the cubs grew stronger and smarter. They learned words. Trace was the first to speak. His voice was rough and strange, but the word was clear. "Mother," he said, looking at. She hugged him so tight that he squeaked. They had built them to be killers. They had put machines in their brains and pain in their memories. They had tried to create weapons. But they had made one mistake. They had forgotten that even weapons could learn to love. And love changed everything. The warship appeared without warning. One moment, the wayward Mercy was flying peacefully through the nebula. The next moment, alarms were screaming, and a massive battleship was blocking their path. Ran to the bridge. Deimos was already there, his face pale with fear. "It is the eternal mandate," he said. "One of their biggest warships. They have been hunting us for 6 months." The communication screen flickered. A face appeared. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and cold black eyes. Gold symbols on his uniform marked him as a commander. "I am Commander," he said. His voice was like ice. "You have something that belongs to us. Return the cargo and we will let you live." Felt her heart pounding, but she kept her voice steady. "They are not cargo, they are children." Laughed. It was not a kind sound. "They are property of the military. They were designed in our labs, built with our technology. They belong to us." "Nobody belongs to anyone," said. The commander's eyes narrowed. "You have stolen military assets worth billions. You have interfered with weapons development. The punishment for this is death." He leaned closer to the screen. "But I am offering you mercy. Give us the cubs, walk away live." Before could answer, she heard movement behind her. The cubs were coming onto the bridge, all 6 of them. They had grown so much in the past months, was nearly as tall as a human adult now. His muscles moved under his dark fur like coiled steel. The others followed him in a tight group. They positioned themselves between and the screen, between her and the threat. Stared at them, his cold face showed surprise for the first time. "What is this?" Stepped forward, he opened his mouth and spoke. His voice was deep and rough, but the words were clear. He had practiced them many times with. "Mother stays, you leave, or we show you what weapons do." Went very still. "They speak," he whispered. "They are not supposed to speak." "They learned," said. "They learned many things, things you never taught them." The commander recovered quickly. His face became hard again. "This changes nothing. They are still property. We are boarding your ship. Any resistance will be met with lethal force." The screen went dark. Deimos grabbed his arm. "We have to run, we have to surrender them. We cannot fight a warship." "I will not give them up," said. "Then we will all die." Turned his head toward Deimos. "No," he said simply. "We will not let her die. We will not let anyone hurt our mother." The other cubs growled in agreement. Trace pressed close to his side. His golden eyes were fierce now, not scared. He had grown into something strong and brave. "They are coming," Myra said from her station. "Boarding pods, 20 soldiers at least." Looked at her cubs, her children. They were not trained fighters. They had spent the last 6 months learning to be gentle, not violent. She had worked so hard to teach them that strength did not mean cruelty. Now she was going to ask them to fight. "You do not have to do this," she said. "You could go with them, you would be safe." Shook his head. "Safe is a cage, safe is pain in our heads, safe is being a weapon with no choice." He put one massive paw on her shoulder. "You gave us choice, we choose you." The boarding pod slammed into the wayward Mercy, heard metal screaming as soldiers cut through the hull. They would be inside in minutes. "Stay behind us," said. "We will protect you." The cubs moved down the corridor toward the breach point. They moved together like water flowing around rocks, had never seen them like this. She had tried so hard to make them peaceful, but now she saw that peace was a choice they made. Violence was another choice, and they had chosen to fight for her. The first soldiers came through the hole in the hull. They were armored and armed with pulse weapons. They expected to find scared humans and confused animals. They found something very different. Hit the first soldier before the man could raise his gun. The flew backward and crashed into his companions, trace and moved from the shadows, silent and fast. Soot and copper blocked the corridor, their claws gleaming in the emergency lights. Fang stood at the back, watching for threats from behind. The fight was over in seconds. The soldiers were trained warriors, but the cubs were something else. They were faster, stronger, and they were fighting for something worth more than money or orders. They were fighting for family. When it was done, the soldiers were unconscious on the floor. Not dead. The cubs had been careful. They had remembered teachings even in battle. They had used their strength to stop the threat, not to kill. Walked through the pile of groaning soldiers to her cubs. They were breathing hard, but they were not hurt. Trace ran to her and pushed his head against her stomach. "We did good," he asked. His voice was hopeful. She hugged him tight. "You did so good. You were amazing." Was already at the communication panel. He activated the screen. Commander appeared again. His face was no longer cold. It was shocked, scared. "Your soldiers are alive," said. "We could have killed them. We chose not to. That is what our mother taught us. Strength is not cruelty." He bared his teeth. "Go away now. Do not come back, or next time we will not be so gentle." Stared at the screen for a long moment. Behind him, could see other officers talking quickly and pointing at their sensors. They were seeing what the cubs had done. They were realizing that their weapons had become something else. "This is not over," said. "Yes, it is," said. "These children made their choice. They choose to be free. They choose to be mine, and you will never take them." The screen went dark. A few minutes later, the eternal mandate turned and flew away. Dima sat down heavily in his chair. "I cannot believe we are alive." Looked at her cubs. They were gathered around her now, all 6 of them, and Trace and Soot and Copper and Fang, her family. "We are more than alive," she said. "We are together, and that is all that matters." Trace purred and pushed his silver head under her hand, stood guard by the door, his eyes watching the stars. They had come looking for weapons. They had found something far more dangerous. They had found love. The Galactic Council chambers were the largest room had ever seen. Thousands of seats rose in a great circle around a central platform. Representatives from 100 different species filled those seats. Some were human, most were not. There were beings with scales and beings with feathers, beings with too many eyes and beings with no eyes at all. They had come from across the galaxy to decide the fate of 6 children. Stood on the central platform, behind her stood her cubs. They were not cubs anymore, really. 8 months had passed since the fight with the warship. The young had grown fast, was now taller than any human, his dark fur sleek over powerful muscles. The others were nearly as big. Only Trace was still small for his age, but even he had grown strong. A representative stepped forward. His name was Ambassador, and his voice echoed through the great chamber. "These creatures are the property of the Empire. They were created in our laboratories. They were designed with our science. This human stole them. She must return them immediately." The chamber buzzed with voices. Many of the representatives were nodding. They knew they feared them. Nobody wanted to make enemies with a military empire. A human diplomat stood up. The woman broke no human laws. She found abandoned cargo on a derelict ship. Under salvage rights, that cargo became hers. "They are not cargo," Ambassador shouted. "They are weapons, military assets. Would you let someone steal a nuclear bomb and keep it?" The chamber buzzed again. More nodding, felt her heart sink. Then a voice spoke from behind her. A rough voice, a young voice. "May I speak?" The chamber went silent. Every eye turned to look at Trace. The small silver stepped forward until he stood next to. His golden eyes swept across the thousands of faces watching him. "My name is Trace," he said. His words were slow and careful. He still struggled with complex sentences, but his meaning was clear. "They made me. They put machines in my brain. When I did not obey, they hurt me. When I did obey, they hurt me anyway. That is all I knew. Pain and cages and cold tubes." He paused. The chamber was completely silent now. "Then she found me," Trace looked at. His eyes were soft. She did not hurt me, she did not put me in a cage, she talked to me, she fed me, she held me when I was scared. His voice cracked a little. She taught me words, she taught me that I was not just a weapon, she taught me that I was a person. Ambassador stepped forward. This is manipulation. The human has programmed them to say these things. Growled, it was a low sound that made the closest representatives lean back in their seats. Nobody programmed us. We learned. We chose. That is what she taught us. Choice. He moved to stand next to Trace. The other cubs joined them. 6 young, standing together before the most powerful council in the galaxy. The one to call us weapons, said, but weapons do not choose, weapons do not love, weapons do not stand before you and speak, he pointed at. This woman looked at us and saw children. She saw people worth saving. That is why we call her mother. That is why we will never leave her. Trace spoke again. His voice was stronger now. We are not weapons, we are hers, and she is ours. This is our choice. You will not take our choice. The chamber exploded with noise. Representatives were shouting at each other. Some were arguing that they were property. Others were saying that any being who could speak and choose was a person with rights. The debate went on for hours, then days, then weeks. Stayed in a small room on the council station with her cubs. She could not leave until the council made their decision. Every day, she watched the news feeds. Every day, she saw the arguments growing more intense. They threatened to leave the council. They threatened economic sanctions. They said that if they were not returned, there would be consequences. But something else was happening too. Across the galaxy, people were watching the recordings of Trace's speech. They were seeing the cubs stand with their mother. They were hearing stories about what the weapons program had done to children. Public opinion was shifting. On the 21st day, the council called everyone back to the great chamber. The lead speaker, an ancient being with blue skin and wise eyes, stood at the center platform. We have reached a decision, she said. The question before us is simple, are the property or people? Ambassador stood. They are property, they were created, they were designed, they belong to their makers. The speaker nodded. Many things are created, many things are designed, but they made one mistake. They made beings that can think, beings that can feel, beings that can choose. She looked at the cubs. And those beings have chosen. They have chosen their guardian. They have chosen their family. They have chosen freedom. She raised her hand. The Galactic Council rules that they are sapient beings with the right to self-determination. They cannot be owned. They cannot be forced to return to anyone. They are free. The chamber erupted. The delegation stormed out. Other representatives cheered, felt tears streaming down her face. Trace threw his arms around her. The other cubs piled on top of them. For a moment, they were not standing before the most powerful council in the galaxy. They were just a family, holding each other tight. We won, Trace asked. Laughed through her tears. Yes, baby, we won. Put his big paw on her shoulder. No, he said, we did not win anything, we just proved what was always true. His face broke into a rare smile. We are family, nobody can take that away. They walked out of the council chamber together. Behind them, the galaxy was changing. The weapons program was being investigated. Other species were asking questions about how they treated created beings. A new conversation had started. And at the center of it all was a human woman and 6 children who had chosen to love each other. That choice would change everything. 10 years had passed since the council ruling. The wayward Mercy had become something more than a salvage ship. It had become a legend, a hope, a promise that help was coming for those who needed it most. Stood on the bridge and watched a distant planet grow larger on her screen. Somewhere down there, in an illegal laboratory, children were being turned into weapons, just like her cubs had been. But her cubs were not cubs anymore. Stood behind her, a massive figure of dark fur and quiet strength. He was fully grown now, taller than 2 humans standing on each other's shoulders. His scars had faded, but his eyes were still sharp. He had become the tactical leader of their family, the one who planned their rescue missions and kept everyone safe. Trace was at the sensors, his silver fur gleaming in the ship's lights. He had never grown as big as his siblings, but he had found his own strength. His nose and ears could track targets across entire star systems. He could find lost children in the darkest holes of the galaxy. And Soot and Copper and Fang were preparing in the cargo bay. Each of them had grown into something powerful and beautiful. Each of them had found their own purpose. I have them, Trace said. 37 life signs in the underground facility. Most are small children. Felt the old anger rise in her chest. How many times had they done this? How many labs had they raided? How many children had they saved? She had lost count years ago. Any defenses? Asked. Armed guards, maybe 40, energy barriers around the main complex. Trace looked at his brother. Nothing we cannot handle. Nodded, he opened the ship-wide communication. Everyone ready? Standard formation. Remember, we are here to save children, not to kill guards. Use minimum force. They had rescued hundreds of children over the years. Some were taken by other species who wanted their own living weapons. Some were different creatures from different worlds. It did not matter what they looked like. If someone was hurting children, the wayward mercy came for them. The mission went smoothly. The guards never stood a chance. The cubs moved like shadows through the facility, taking down armed soldiers without killing anyone, followed behind with the rescue team, gathering frightened children and carrying them to safety. One little creature, something like a fox with 6 legs and purple fur, grabbed onto his leg and would not let go. "It is okay," she said softly, kneeling down. "You are safe now, nobody will hurt you anymore." The little one looked up at her with huge, scared eyes, remembered that look. She had seen it in Trace's eyes 10 years ago. "You are going to be okay," she promised. "I am going to take care of you." They brought the children to the ship. The medical bay was full of scared young creatures who did not understand what was happening, but the cubs knew exactly what to do. They had been there themselves. Trace sat with the smallest ones and purred softly until they stopped shaking. Brought warm blankets. Copper made a game of the medical scans so the children would not be afraid. Fang stood guard at the door, his massive form reassuring rather than frightening. Found in the corridor, she was tired. These missions took so much out of her. She was not young anymore, and her body complained more with each rescue. "You should rest," he said. She shook her head. "Too much to do. We need to contact the sanctuary. We need to find families for these children. We need to plan the next mission." "There is always a next mission." Put his paw on her shoulder the same way he had when he was just a scared cub learning to trust. "But there is only one you. We need you to stay healthy." Looked up at him. When had her children become the ones taking care of her? "I love you," she said. "All of you, you know that, right?" "We know." His face broke into a smile. "We love you too, that is why we worry." An alert came from the bridge. Demos, gray-haired now but still flying the ship, called through the speaker. "We have company. A hegemony just came out of hyperspace. They are blocking our exit." Ran to the bridge. Through the window, she could see 3 massive warships hanging in space. They were black and angular, designed for intimidation. The communication screen flickered on. A hegemony admiral appeared. His face was cruel and proud. "You have interfered with a legally authorized research facility," he said. "The children you stole are our property. Return them immediately, or we will destroy your ship." Felt cold fear wash over her. They had faced threats before, but 3 warships. That was too many. They could not fight their way out of this. Then stepped forward and activated the communication panel. "Our mother taught us that strength is not cruelty," he said. His voice was calm and clear. "That power is responsibility, that the measure of a people is how they treat those who cannot fight back." He looked straight at the admiral. "You look at us and see weapons. She looked at us and saw children worth saving. We will never let anyone harm her, and we will never stop protecting those who need us." Smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of someone who knew exactly who he was and what he stood for. "You may retreat now," he said. The admiral's face went pale. He had heard the stories about the wayward mercy, about the living weapons who had become guardians, about the human woman who had turned an empire's greatest weapons against them. The hegemony ships powered down their weapons. One by one, they turned and flew away. Let out a breath she did not know she was holding. That was risky. "No," said, "they were afraid. They knew what we could do, but more importantly, they knew what we chose not to do." He looked at his siblings gathered on the bridge. "We are not weapons. We are guardians, and guardians protect." Trace bounded up to and pressed his silver head against her hand, just like he had when he was a tiny cub sleeping outside her door. "We did good?" he asked. Even after 10 years, he still asked the same question. She scratched behind his ears. "You did perfect, you always do." The wayward Mercy flew away from the planet, carrying its precious cargo of rescued children to safety. Behind them, word was already spreading. Another laboratory shut down. Another group of children saved. Another victory for the human and her family. Across the galaxy, people were whispering. If you were small and scared and someone was trying to hurt you, there was help coming. A ship with a human captain and her 6 children. Children who had been made to be weapons but had chosen to become something else. They had chosen to become guardians. And they had chosen love. Sat in her captain's chair, surrounded by her family. Outside the window, stars stretched into lines as the ship jumped to hyperspace. Somewhere out there, more children needed them. More missions waited. But for now, in this moment, everything was perfect. She had saved 6 cubs from becoming weapons. They had saved her right back. And together, they had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Family,